Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books and I'll let you know what I thought about them. And we always start with the pick of the week. And this week's pick of the week, The Bone Orchard Mythos Tenement, issue number 5 from Image Comics, written by Jeff Lemire with artwork by Andrea Sorrentino, Dave Stewart on the coloring, Steve Wands on the lettering. Every time that Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino work together on a project, it becomes one of my absolute favorite books. Gideon Falls was something that I thought was very rarely rivaled during its duration of its publication, for instance. So when they teamed up to do this Bone Orchard Mythos, which would be a series of connected stories, each story being completely different, but all kind of being tied together, I was into it. I was super on board, and I've been enjoying the series so much, but Tenement has really raised that level of engagement, of excitement, of mystery, of answering questions, as well as deepening those mysteries. I freaking love this book. And this book, which has started feeling kind of small. It's about a group of strangers, albeit they live together in the same apartment building, right? And now there's something supernatural going on. They all have to kind of band together. So you got a lot of different personality conflicts, lots of different interesting characters for Jeff Lemire to play with. And then you got the incredibly tonally resonant and atmospheric artwork by Andrea Sorrentino, aided by that coloring from Dave Stewart. This is just masterful stuff. Those moments in Gideon Falls where the story really starts turning, where it goes from a personal story to something mind-boggling and even otherworldly, not just paranormal otherworldly, but like truly otherworldly. Great, interesting concepts on the composition and the panel design, the way it flows, the intensity of it. When Gideon Falls would have those moments, Tenement now has reached those moments and has even surpassed them for me in this issue. I picked this issue as the pick of the week because I absolutely think that out of everything this week, this was the one that innovated the most. This was the one that pushed boundaries the most. Even though it does feel very familiar, because it's Lemire and Sorrentino, it is that style, but it is definitely trying to push forward, and that's what I really appreciate about this. Plus, the overall story is becoming a little bit more clear's probably the wrong word, except for in this issue where you start seeing a lot of connections between this story and everything else and the overall larger narrative of the Bone Orchard Mythos here in Tenement, issue number 5, the pick of the week. Also from Image this week, we got Hack Slash Back to School. So this is I don't know, I've never really read a lot of Hack Slash. I try to get into it, it just never really completely captures my attention. But here we got Zoe Thorogood, who just recently was like an Eisner-nominated darling with It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth. I haven't read it yet, but I do like her artwork. I've actually gotten to meet her in person. She's super freaking cool. But I wanted to check this one out because it is Hack Slash, it's the Halloween season, and it's Zoe Thorogood. And even though I've never really gotten into Hack Slash, this feels like it's a little bit of a throwback, not necessarily a prequel, but almost like a Hack Slash Year 1 tale or something like that, where she's still in school, still trying to find out who she is as a hacker of these slashers or something. I loved it though. Even not knowing all of the mythology, even not knowing the history of this book, of this character, I jumped right in and I loved it. And it does have that signature Thorogood flair to it, but I really, really enjoyed it. It's got murder, mayhem, death, insanity, and a really nice, cool, innovative style and flavor throughout the entire book. I liked it. So if you're a fan of Zoe Thorogood, or you're a fan of Hack Slash, or you're just a fan of dope Halloween-y horror comics, definitely check this one out. I had a lot of fun with that. What do y'all think? Should I dive further into the history and the legacy of Hack Slash? Let me know. Then we got Swan Songs here with issue number 4 of Swan Songs. Each issue of this book, written by W. Maxwell Prince, has a different artist, and it's an anthology tale, and it's always about the end of something. The first issue is about the end of the world. The second issue is about the end of a marriage. The third issue is about the end of the world, and this is about the end of a sentence, meaning when a criminal gets out of prison, what is life like after that? But there's this really interesting thing narratively with the structure where Mad Libs are kind of like tied into the story. So it's about this dude who's obsessed with these kind of word games like Mad Libs. They say like bad libs, sad libs, Mad Libs, all these different types of things. And those are actually integrated into the story in a very clever way, twisting it towards the end. The artwork is by Caitlin Yarsky, I believe. Absolutely loved this issue. Thought it was really cool stuff. The way it's able to tell a story about a dude who feels like he's already lost all hope. Now there's a new promise, but sometimes it's not as easy as just choosing the word that we want to fit into the sentence of the story of our lives. I thought it was really clever and interesting. This was very clever and very interesting. Just like a lot of the stuff from W. Maxwell Prince, it was a really innovative comic that also had a nice, resonant touch of nuance about it. So Swan Songs issue number 4, I liked it. Local Man is here with issue number 6, continuing the second arc, or starting, I should say, the second arc of Local Man by Tony Fleece and Tim Seeley. We just recently had Tony back on the show on Friday. Check out that interview. We talked a lot about this issue. We talked about his new book, Army of Darkness Forever. He's just such a cool dude, and I love having conversations with Tony. But Tony and Tim are doing a crazy awesome job with Local Man. Local Man is the story of a dude who is an extreme 90s image superhero who is now back in his hometown and is banned from using his superhero identity or any of his abilities because it's copyrighted by the company or something like that, right? But anyway, after the crazy finale of the last arc, and we had this really cool Local Man Gold one-shot right in the midst of it, but we're continuing the mystery, we're continuing the story and the momentum that was set at the end of that final arc. It's a very grounded, down-to-earth kind of approach, but it's also playing with those extreme kind of tropes from 90s superhero, but it does it in a very, as Tony Fleece said, Ed Brucker-Baker. Ed Brucker-Baker? Who's Ed Brucker-Baker? That's his cousin. His Spanish cousin, Brucker-Baker. It's very Bruce-Bakerian. Anyway, Local Man number 6, it's back. Enjoy it. Then we got Kill Your Darlings, issue number 2. We were talking about this on the monthly comic book review, and I couldn't really remember what had happened in the first issue, but everybody was talking about it, so I was like, you know what, let me pick up issue number 2, even though I don't really remember what happened in the first issue. And once I started reading this, I started remembering it. It's about this girl. She seems tied into these, like, past magical fictional lives or something like that. I don't know. Honestly, they think she's kind of like, they got her like in a mental institution. She thinks she's going crazy, but there's some real stuff going on. Like she's a part of this fantasy world. It's almost like, what if Alice in Wonderland came back to the real world, didn't remember any of her trips from Wonderland, and thought they just made her feel crazy or something like I don't know. That being said, when I read issue 2 of Kill Your Darlings, it started making me remember this book, but then, like, honestly, throughout it, I just kind of felt dulled out, wasn't really super engaged with the story, felt a little lost. At certain moments, it kind of trickled my interest back in, but overall, it didn't do much for me. I don't know if I'm going to have the patience to come back to issue number 3. Then we got Click, Click, Boom here with issue number 5. This is the final issue of this book by Doug Wagner and somebody Dabbs. Doug Wagner and Doug Dabbs and Matt Wilson and Ed Dukeshire. I have had a lot of fun with this book. It's about this, it's basically a revenge tale. This dude who was very close to our protagonist in this book was murdered, and now she is going on this mission of vengeance, trying to find the people responsible for that and bring them to justice. And she can't speak, she's mute, but she communicates through a series of Polaroid pictures, and they also represent her memories. This was a really cool, high-octane conclusion to this series that was very satisfying, very bloody, and a great ending that I felt completely A-okay with. I absolutely loved it. Click, Click, Boom, another great crime fiction comic from Doug Wagner. Then we've got Hexagon Bridge, issue number 2. I was blown away by Hexagon Bridge issue number 1. Has something to do with these two missing scientists. They're somewhere lost in the multiverse, or maybe in between the multiverses, in the space that lies between. There's these people missing them. There's all this kind of stuff. I really loved issue number 1. The way that it was drawn, the way that story was told visually was such a treat. Same thing here. The artwork in this book is absolutely amazing. It's got this like European kind of flair to it. I love the coloring. I like the light little subtle touches to to the coloring, to the artwork. I think it's really got a nice sense. It's got a cool sci-fi concept, but issue 2 did start getting way confusing. There were moments where I felt lost, but I was just lulled in by the artwork. I love this artwork. I love the flow of it. But I was finding myself to be a bit lost and confused within the story, so it didn't quite woo me like issue number 1, but it was still pretty decent. Then we got Big Game here with issue number 4, the penultimate issue of Big Game. I've been loving this. This is like a superhero crossover done right, with big stakes, with lots of epic scales, connecting things that don't feel like they should be connected, and all the Mark Millar books are connected in this book. From Kick-Ass to Empress, that's right, a heavy lean into Empress here with some really interesting ideas behind that and attached to that. You got Hit Girl back in the past. She's coming up against the cast of Empress. Meanwhile, you got the Wanted crew in the future. They think they've already wiped out the new generation of superheroes, but there is still hope. There is another. We shall see what happens. Great dynamic artwork from Pepe Larraz, and just really cool, fun storytelling, playing with his own toys by Mark Millar. Big Game issue number 4 has not let go, and I appreciate that. From Marvel, we've got Tingling Spider-Man issue number 1. So a few weeks ago, we had issue number 0, which was the web series collected all in one form. That's a separate story, but this is kind of in that same vein. Same writer, same artist as Saladin Ahmed, and it's Juan Ferreira. I absolutely loved this book. I thought the 0 issue was a really cool, horrific tale set in the world of Spider-Man, and that's what issue number 1 of this new series is as well. The artwork is truly nightmarish when it needs to be. It does say on the cover that this is the scariest Marvel book ever. I don't know, that's to be seen, but the artwork in here is absolutely amazing. When it needs to be clever and innovative and superhero-y, it is, but when it needs to be in your face and horrific, it is as well. Juan Ferreira is an underappreciated, undervalued artist in this industry. Saladin Ahmed has really strengthened as a writer. Tingling Spider-Man is a great example of why. This is a really great, easy book to read. It's breezy. You can read right through it, but you want to linger on those amazing compositions and that amazing work from Juan Ferreira. I absolutely loved it. Basic premise of this book is one day Peter Parker wakes up, nobody remembers who he is, and he doesn't have his powers anymore. And he's being chased down by this like crazy like ghost dude or whatever. It was really awesome. I was like, no lie, this is the best Spider-Man book I've read in a very long time. Then we got the Sensational She-Hulk issue number 1. Not quite a clean, fresh start for She-Hulk because it's the same writer, maybe the same artist, but definitely the same writer and direction from the previous She-Hulk series. You might feel a little bit lost, but any good issue number 1 of a comic book will get you caught up, and that's what this one does. I was very impressed with how much I liked this book. I dropped out of She-Hulk not too long ago. I mean, I liked it. I thought it was okay, but then there just wasn't enough kind of action or enough, I don't know, there wasn't enough movement in that story for me. But then you come into here with Sensational She-Hulk issue number 1. It's funny. It's not taking itself too seriously, but there's also this nice kind of sweet, charming, and slightly tragic romance between Jack of Hearts and She-Hulk right now. So that's interesting. I liked the vibe of this book. There's not a whole lot of action, not a whole lot of threat really being built up. That was one of my criticisms when I was reading that last series, was it just kind of felt like there wasn't really much movement except for like more on the like subplot kind of motion, but that's what's going on here. But I actually liked it. Really cool, fun, tongue-in-cheek kind of playing around with superheroes. But Sensational She-Hulk issue number 1. I liked it. I was very surprised. Crypt of Shadows is here. It's a one-shot comic book. It's Halloween time. Everybody's got to get into the Halloween anthology, Halloween special thing. Marvel is no exception. This is a collection of a few short stories that are all perfect for Halloween. If you're a Marvel fan and you want something spooky that you can lean into for this Halloween season, definitely get Tingling Spider-Man, but Crypt of Shadows is going to be okay. My favorite story in it was this Deadpool story where he teams up with the living mummy. I liked that a lot. There's an Al Ewing story in here, I think is introducing a new character, maybe not, but it's introducing or revealing or revisiting a threat to possibly the Marvel Universe. There's a Steve Orlando story in there with Scarlet Witch. That was just kind of okay. There's that Mummy story with Deadpool. I really like that one. I had a lot of fun with that one. There's a Daredevil story. It was alright. It has the Man-Thing in it. There's some cool artwork, and one thing that is cool about this is Marvel's gotten some horrific or horror appropriate artists to work with this. You also have a Hulk and Werewolf by Night story there at the end. None of them really super wowed me or like were anything worthy of just picking it up just for that. But if you want something Halloween-y anthology for Marvel, I mean, this is what you got, Crypt of Shadows. Then we got Daredevil issue number 2, Saladin Ahmed, Aaron Cutter. I liked issue number 1. I thought it was a good setup and a good following up on the Chip Zdarsky, Marco Cicchetto run, and I liked issue number 2 even better. First of all, I was really worried about Aaron Cutter on the artwork. I just didn't know if his style, which usually comes across as very clean, if it would be appropriate for the world and the character of Daredevil, but I am surprised, like, I am thankfully, like, oh, what am I trying to say? Thankfully, that's not the case. I love the artwork in this book, the use of heavy blacks at certain moments, kind of familiar shots that we have of Daredevil. It really keeps the storytelling flow very quick and has a brisk pace to it. And Saladin Ahmed is really kind of coming into his own as a writer and really actually doing a way better job of telling, using less is more and all that kind of stuff and showing and not telling. And I really appreciate this. It's setting up some interesting stuff to come. It's a great continuation from the Chip Zdarsky. It's got a completely different tone than the Chip Zdarsky run, but it feels like it's organically following that, which I really do appreciate it. Daredevil issue number 2. I really like that one. Then we got Incredible Hulk here with issue number 5. This was an okay issue of Hulk. These last 2 haven't been my favorite, but the basic premise behind this book is that every monster on Earth has been loosed, risen from the dead, and is coming after Hulk, and Man-Thing is trying to warn him. Travel Foreman does the artwork here, and it works in certain moments, and it doesn't work in other moments. Here's a moment where it really does work. A lot of psychological, horrific type stuff going on there, but it's decent, and it's all right. I'm ready to get Nick Klein back in on this book, because I think his artistic vision is going to be what really ties this all together, and if we keep going from artist to artist, and the styles changing so drastically, it's going to wear people's interest in this book, and I think that is a danger. Moonight is here with issue number 28. We're starting the last days of Moonight. I think they're killing Moonight or something. I don't know. Not for long if they do, but we're building up to the grand finale that Jed MacKay has been building up to in the pages of Moon Knight since day one. The villains have been revealed, their plan is revealed, and now Moon Knight and his people are taking the fight to them, and it's that final climactic conclusion, hopefully, and this is just the start of it. Lots of stuff is going on, but at times it feels a little bit too melodramatic. The artwork feels rushed. It's not Cappuccino who we're used to on this, so it doesn't have that quite that energy to it. It's trying to do it, but it's not completely working for me. And it was just kind of an okay, lackluster issue because of it for me. But if you've been reading this series, you definitely want to know what's going to happen in the pages of Moon Knight in the next few issues. Then we got Miles Morales, Spider-Man issue number 11. This is kind of like a team up with Blade and Blade's daughter, and it's okay. It's kind of a run-of-the-mill team-up story. It's interesting enough. We just got the news that there's a Blade Miles Avengers crossover coming, so maybe some of those seeds are being laid here. But the story's just kind of okay. The characterizations are just kind of okay, and it gets stunted a little bit with some heavy dialogue at certain times. And the art in this just kind of feels a little bit rushed. It's not the typical artist as well. So, oh, and there's a really cool introduction of a new suit for Miles, albeit a temporary one, but everything kind of feels cluttered and it makes the whole thing feel rather clunky and not very smooth. So I thought it was just kind of okay. Then we got Children of the Vault here with issue number 3, the penultimate issue of this series, written by Dennis Camp. It's got some really great complex ideas, lots of interesting things, and just nice kind of fun superhero team up between Cable and Bishop. So I love how Dennis Camp can balance the high concept stuff and the more grounded buddy cop kind of approach to it, the odd couple approach. It's an interesting dynamic that I think really works. And out of all the X books right now, this has been the one that's kept my interest the most. I have a lot of fun with this. Like I said, high concept, but at the same time, it's kind of got that funny, humorous, odd couple, buddy cop type vibe between Cable and Bishop, and I'm all here for it. Children of the Vault, issue number 3. I liked it. Then we got Deadpool Batter Blood, issue number 5. This is the final issue of the series by Rob Liefeld, and it's Rob Liefeld doing what Rob Liefeld does in 2023, and you know what? I'm all here for it. I buy every issue. I enjoy it. Is it the best thing out there? No. Is it the best Deadpool book ever? No. Is it the best work from Rob Liefeld ever? Is that the best Spider-Man Rob Liefeld's ever drawn? It might be. Might be. Let's jump over to DC. And from DC Comics, we have Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong. That's right, they finally did it. It's the Justice League versus Godzilla versus King Kong. We got a bunch of covers, including that wraparound cover A right there. There are going to be the Roaring covers. You probably have heard about them. They're like 15, 16 bucks. You open up one, it's the Godzilla roar. Open up another, and it's King Kong's roar. Those are not coming out till next month. Those are going to be out a little bit later. Apparently took a lot longer to put those ones together. So if you don't see them on your shelves this week, that's why. Just let your retailer know that you want them, and they can hold them for you when they come in next month. Anyway, the book itself it's okay. It's fine. It's not, what do you expect this book to be, right? I'm reading this book and I'm like, what am I expecting out of Justice League versus Godzilla versus King Kong? I'm expecting the Justice League. I'm expecting Godzilla. I'm expecting King Kong. And I'm expecting some kind of weird, interesting, contrived way to get it all thrown together. And that's what you get. I like how much this book actually focuses on the personal dynamic between the relationships between the members of the Justice League, right? It's kind of set in its own continuity. Superman's trying to take, or my bad, Clark's trying to take Lois out on a date to propose for her. It gets interrupted by Godzilla. Why is Godzilla there? Well, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I'm telling you the Legion of Doom has something to do with it. It's a book that's not taking itself too seriously, but it's actually doing a better job with the script than it actually should. And the artwork at certain times, it works and it's serviceable, but then there are other moments, mostly the Godzilla moments, where it really freaking works. So this is not a book that you're going to go, wow, this is such a well-made, well-crafted, technically sound comic book, but it's kind of dumb fun. Big dumb fun, actually, because it's got Godzilla and King Kong in it. So I'm all here for it. I think that they did exactly what they were supposed to in that book. Then we got Jay Garrick, The Flash, issue number 1. This is from Jeremy Adams and Diego Olortegui. So this is kind of just like the Wesley Dodds Sandman one that launched last week, where we got this new golden age that's been revitalized by Jeff Johns over at DC. Well, let's play around with that, including the return of the character who has never existed before until now. But the idea is that Jay Garrick had a daughter, a superhero named Boom, and she was lost. And she came back in that Stargirl and the Lost Children story. And this is kind of filling in some of the gaps of what her history actually is, as well as tying into a modern day story of her trying to acclimate to returning to the world after being gone for so long. Her parents are super old. Everything is way different. So I really like that approach. Whereas the Wesley Dodds Sandman one was set all back in the Golden Age, this one is telling a couple different stories, but all one big story. And I really liked that structure. I liked that approach. And I liked the exploration of the characters here in Jay Garrick, The Flash. Then we got Batman Superman World's Finest number 20. This book is awesome. This book is freaking awesome, y'all. All right, so wait, okay. Superman, Batman's World's Finest. Mark Waid, Dan Mora. They've been telling these like Silver Age set tales with a modern approach, and it all is setting up stuff that usually has some kind of reverberation into the current DC continuity. Like in the first arc, they introduced that devil dude or whatever, and that led into Lazarus Planet, which led into, you know, a whole bunch of stuff with the dawn of the DCU or whatever, right? Then in the second arc, we had the introduction of a possible former sidekick for Superman, Boy Thunder, and then we found out that that character actually has ties to Kingdom Come. Well, throughout this entire time, they've been trying to find this dude, and they find him, and they find his world, and it's got ties to Kingdom Come. So this is Batman and Superman going into the Kingdom Come reality to try to find Boy Thunder. And this book is awesome. This book is awesome. This is like giddy Robbie, fanboy, 12-year-old superhero gold for me. This is why I read superhero comic books. I want to see stuff like this. Stuff that takes known stories, plays with them, things that represent and honor the characters, artwork that is big, that's got great perspective, that has dynamic, explosive qualities to it. That's what we get in the pages of Batman Superman World's Finest. This book felt overstuffed when it first started. Man, it has ironed out, become one of my favorite books on shelves. Batman Superman World's Finest number 20. Fans of this book, you're gonna love it. And if you like Kingdom Come, you might want to check this one out. Just saying. I had a lot of fun with that. Superman number 7 is here, an oversized 850th issue special. if you want to do the legacy number, and just do the legacy number, why do we have, you know what, that's a story for another day. Everybody rambles and rants about that, right? Let's talk about the contents of the book, because it's awesome. It's Joshua Williamson really exploding here with his Superman ideas. I'm loving it. Big, action-packed type stuff. Really great artwork from all involved, including Gleb Melkinov, I think is his name. I'm getting much, in certain pages, a very Ed McGuinness kind of vibe and flavor to it. There's some Dan Jurgens bit, but it's basically this new hero called the Chained. Not a new hero, a new villain called the Chained. He shows up, and it's just a big fight between him, Superman, and the Super Family. But also some really interesting revelations about Luthor's family, some returning characters from Luthor's past that we haven't seen in a long time, references to some really great eras of Superman that are very underappreciated, like the Joe Kelly, Jeff Loeb stuff, Y2K, baby, I love the Y2K references. So Superman number 7, Josh Williamson and company are doing the Superman book I want. It's big, it's explosive, it's boisterous, and it's tied into some excellent Superman lore from back in the day that only a few people really remember. Anyway, Superman number 7, I loved it. Then we got Green Lantern War Journal issue number 2. I love the approach that Philip Kennedy Johnson is taking with John Stewart, showing how important he is, but also how connected he is and grounded by who he is as a character. His mother is not doing so well. He's trying to help her out. He's trying to convince her to move to Metropolis. So he goes to Metropolis to get a job with Steelworks, right? So there's interesting stuff going on there, but then interesting things being done with the lore of the emotional spectrum, and maybe even some ties, it feels like, to Blackest Night. But there's still a big mystery about what's exactly going on, but the balance here between the personal story and the explosive superhero stuff, it works, and it's not something that a lot of writers can do in a mainstream superhero book, but Philip Kennedy Johnson's been doing it right now for a couple issues and a few backups in the pages of Green Lantern War Journal issue number 2, and really solid artwork too. Really great Green Lantern action and some nice personal stories in there. Then we got Catwoman number 58. This is the next part of the Batman Catwoman Gotham War, and this was an okay issue. I really do like the Batman Catwoman Gotham War, but now that there's been the big revelation in the last issue of Batman, I feel like we're kind of truncating all of the major moments from the first chapters of this run to focus in on this stuff. And basically, I don't want to spoil it, but the real villain has been revealed. But it doesn't change anything about the way Batman's been acting, or Catwoman, or the Bat family. There's some weird clunky moments here between Batman and Catwoman where it doesn't seem like it fits into the flow, because it's like, I get that once the real threat's been revealed, everybody's got to team up and take care of it, but it just feels like there's a lack of consequences so far from some of the opening shots. I'm sure, hopefully, that's not going to be the case. Not as good as the opening chapter, not as good as the Batman chapters, but still good and very much essential to your reading of this. So if you're reading Batman, you want the whole story, definitely pick up Catwoman number 58. Then we got Nightwing here with issue number 107. I've been enjoying what Tom Taylor's doing with the pages of Nightwing, and now that Night Terrors is over, we can get back to building that momentum, and that's what's going on here. There's a character from the Grayson days, the Rick Grayson, when he forgot who he was and he tried to be like an edgy, it was like Dick Grayson trying to act like Jason Todd, basically, right? But there's some unresolved issues and relationships from that era that Tom Taylor's dealing with in the pages here of Nightwing, and I have a lot of fun with it. And it's a little bit of a pirate story, and even this dumb cover, like, you know, stay for Nightwing's pirate booty. There's a funny kind of humorous reason as to why he's dressed like a pirate that I kind of dug, but I like the approach to this story. I'm liking the characterizations, and I'm enjoying it, you know? Bruno Redondo is definitely the artist for this book. Stephen Byrne is on this issue, but it still works, and it's still pretty decent. Then we got Titans here with issue number 4. This has been a pretty solid run. Tom Taylor, Nicola Scott, they're tasked with an almost impossible kind of task, right? Which is, they're tasked with the task. Great. So they're tasked with an impossible type of task where they're trying to make the Titans feel as important as Justice League. And it's really just an excuse for Tom Taylor to be like, yo, what can the Titans do different to really make a difference that the Justice League didn't? So if you didn't like some of the things he did in his recent issues of Nightwing, or stuff like Superman Son of Kal-El, it's not quite as heavy-handed as that, but it's almost like that's the idea. Like, yo, the Justice League was great, but they didn't really care or stick around and help people deal with the aftermath and all that stuff. It's like, well, actually they have, but I get that you're kind of twisting that for the purpose of your story to elevate the Titans into people who care, and I understand, and it's cool, and whatever. All that stuff aside, this is a solid book. It's got some solid bits in it. I like the Beast Boy stuff, and I really like there's this mystery going on with this new Church of Blood or whatever, like, and Garth kind of tied up into it, and now another character is, so I'm liking the Pages of Titans. The only problem is some of these DC books have totally had their momentum cut because of Night Terrors, and now it's taken a moment for some of these books to kind of reestablish that, like Titans, I would say. Then we got Batman White Knight Presents Generation Joker, issue number 6, the final issue of Generation Joker. Very satisfying conclusion. I really like this series. I like the White Knight books. But I also like all of the spin-offs and all the tie-ins, all the stories in between that really don't feel or seem like they should matter, but this one absolutely feels like it matters. It sets up the next story, which is really, really freaking interesting. We already know what's kind of coming on the horizon there, but really building up these characters, these two kids of Harley Quinn and Joker, like, who cares about them? Well, I do, because they're giving us the time to care. They're developing these characters and making them earn my affection, and that's something I really, really like about this book, Mirka. And Dolfo's artwork has been solid. It's got its charm to it. This book has a very satisfying conclusion. Let's jump over to Dark Horse. We have Subgenre, issue number 1, oversized magazine format. This is Matt Kent and Wilfredo Torres, I believe. Yeah, Wilfredo Torres. This is an interesting kind of genre-bending book where it's about this dude. He's kind of like a private eye. He's on a new case. He's talking about how he's trying not to be too tropey, but every once in a while he can fall into a PI trope. And he's describing all this. There's this interesting kind of mystery going around. It's kind of meta. It's dealing with fiction. There's this company that's basically like Disney or Warner Brothers or something, some kind of big media company that owns like everything. It's like hiring him because somebody's like, I don't know, fiction terrorizing or something like that. And it winds up this convoluted kind of thing. And then all of a sudden it has a twist at the end that really is what the heart of this book is about. But I don't want to explain what the twist is. But if you like Matt Kent, if you like meta books, if you like things that play with the line between fiction and reality, as blurry as that may feel like sometimes, definitely check out Subgenre, issue number 1. Then we got Headless Horseman. This is a Halloween special from Dark Horse Comics, $7.99, but it's got some really solid Dark Horsey feeling Halloween type tales. My favorite being the one in the back by Tyler Crook. Really like the artwork there. The other ones are pretty decent. Some pretty solid artwork though. I think that this is, out of all of the horror Halloween anthologies that have arrived, this is definitely my favorite one. Some of the stories are pretty obvious with where they're going and how they wind up, but every single one of them's got interesting artwork that I think is super dope and very interesting to see. And it can be bloody and it can be violent when it needs to, and we got a cover there by my good friend Mark Spears. So Mark, congratulations, this is a great cover. Big things happening in Mark's future. By the way, if you like Mark's work, check out his Mark Spears monster cards and other books that he's done, and he's got more exciting stuff to come in the future, so that's freaking cool. There's also a Mike Mignola cover. Mark, I love you, bruh. I hate to do it, but if you're gonna lose cover of the week, at least lose to Mike Mignola. That's my cover of the week. Headless Horseman. Mike Mignola's awesome freaking cover, but right behind it, the Mark Spears one. Then we got a real treat from IDW right here called Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. This is a book that as soon as you open it, it looks like a kid's book. It's a world with a bunch of talking animals, humanoid animals, anthropomorphic, whatever that word is. And it's cute, and it's this small town vibe, and it's nice, and you think it's a kid's book, but it's not. And that cover is amazing, because that cover tells you everything you need to know about this book. So the main character is this cutesy, like, teddy bear that owns, like, this hardware shop, right? Turns out, she's a freaking serial killer. So, yep, she goes and straight up kills people. She's a serial killer in a cutesy world full of, like, talking cartoon animals. And I know that we've seen stuff like this before, but this is handled with such a sly and wry kind of nuance to it that I absolutely was blown away. The artwork is great. It's got a lot of nice little texture and details. It feels like a storybook, but then when you're getting into it, you see how dark it's getting, and then there's a twist at the end that really sets it up as more than just, oh, serial killer, cutesy animal, ha ha ha. No, there's more to this story than that. This is the sleeper hit of the week. If you want something shocking, you want something different, you want something surprising, check out Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees from IDW. From Mad Cave, we have Crusader issue number 2. This is by Matt Emmons, who I know, I've met him at Charlotte this year, I saw him at Memphis again, and I didn't even put together when I reviewed this book last month that this was him, or I would have told him, great job, when I saw him in Memphis. I love this book. So it's about a knight in the Crusades who's wind up transported to this other world filled with like orcs and goblins and all kinds of things, and he's just trying to get back home, but he's in for more than he wished for. One of my favorite things about this book, aside from just the amazing artwork and the very solid sense of storytelling that is on display here, is some of the thematic things where this world of like orcs and goblins that like murder people and just have all this their way of life, and they just murder people, right? And the comparison of that to the Crusaders, that's kind of cool. I really like it. Love the art. It's got a nice kind of texture to it, and like I said, impeccable flow of storytelling from our buddy Matt Emmons. Crusader issue number 2, loved that one. Hatchet Halloween Tales 5. I have every issue of the Hatchet Halloween Tales anthologies. They are all not very good. This one does have a Cullen Bunn story that is cool about a survivor of Victor Crowley who is triggered by some trick-or-treaters on Halloween who are dressed like Victor Crowley. That's cool. I really like that. That was my favorite one in here. The rest of them are just kind of okay. If you're a hardcore Hatchet fan like I am, buy it. If you're not, just stay away. Just stay away. Then we got Al Capone Vampire. I was excited to read this, but I read it and I felt lost and confused because this felt like a continuation from another story, and it is Vampire PA or something like that, but it was stiff, it was clunky, it was not exciting, and a book like Al Capone Vampire, I read it because I knew that when y'all see that on the list, you're going to be like, oh, what's that? And so I'm here to tell you, it ain't nothing special, unfortunately. I just didn't really dig on it. Then we got this. This is an interesting book. It's called The Man from Maybe, issue number 1 from Oni Press. I liked this book. It's written by Jordan Thomas with artwork by Shaky Kane. This is not going to be to everyone's liking, not the art, but I mean, the art is what I'm talking about, but it is definitely my style. It's an interesting story. It's a little bit sci-fi, a little bit Western, a little bit futuristic, but a little bit silly and very indie and very delightfully so. Great colors, great interesting stuff. They're basically, if I'm trying to remember this right, the premise is this. These aliens land, there's this like artifact that they're after. There are these other people after this artifact. There are these dudes who are like bounty hunters. They get caught up in the middle of all of it. It's very typical of a lot of like cliche Western plots, but it's got like all the absurdity and the sci-fi elements like almost seamlessly kind of mixed into there. So it's a very indie, underground, alternative sci-fi Western that I absolutely liked. If you like your comic books weird and out there, you might want to check The Man from Maybe. I really did like that one. I thought it was cool. Gargoyles, the Halloween special from Dynamite. This was cool. This is Nash's first night trick-or-treating, right? Because he can safely go out trick-or-treating because everybody thinks he's just dressed as a gargoyle, even though that's a hellaciously awesome gargoyle costume. But it's a nice, fun, one-and-done, self-contained story that's also firmly rooted into the timeline of the gargoyles. All their personalities shine through. It is written by Greg Weisman, and he knows what he's doing. So Gargoyles, the Halloween special. I really like that. Then we got Rumpus Room, issue number 2, a book from Mark Russell, talking about billionaires again. This is something he likes to talk about, but each one has kind of a different kind of subtle nuance about it that shifts that focus a little bit. This is about a dude who's a billionaire who, when he has a problem with someone, he just locks them up in what he calls his rumpus room downstairs in his basement, right? So in this issue, in the first issue, we're introduced to that concept. In the second issue, we're introduced to all the people who are trapped in this rumpus room, and we get to understand and appreciate why so many of them have just to resign themselves to this fate, to just, you know what, this is my life, I'm just going to enjoy it. There's a lot of, I wouldn't call it subtext there, about like the billionaire class keeping the working class down and how the working class just, a lot of them will make excuses for the upper class and this and that. There's a lot of that stuff in there, and it's not like, it's not buried. It's all right there on the surface, but it's easy to understand, but it still has this nice touch of not just satire, but humanity to it, right? There's some really nice touching moments in this book. I really liked it. Rumpus Room number 1 I thought was good, but number 2 I liked even better. Then we got Pink Elephant, issue number 3. This is the final issue for now. Maybe this series will return. But I was a little bit disappointed in this finale. It didn't have a lot of oomph to it. The basic premise is this. It's about a slasher who's unleashed on a bunch of kids taking acid. So really, The previous 2 issues have just been sex, drugs, and gore. And that's what you get here. And it's not bad, but like it just kind of felt like underwhelming when I read it. And I was like, oh wait, that was it? Why couldn't that just be tacked on to the last issue? I don't know. Maybe it'll read better altogether, or maybe it will work better when it's like, I don't know. It says like the end for now, so I guess it's going to come back. But really cool, gnarly psychedelic type stuff. So you know what? I did like it. It just felt like quick and underwhelming a little bit. I don't know, but it was all right book. I'm glad I read it. And those are the books that I read, but let me show some trade paperbacks real quick. We got the Creepy Archives. Volume 3 is here. Master horror work from some of the masters of comic book artwork. You're going to get in here work from Johnny Craig, Gray Morrow, Gil Kane, Joe Orlando, John Severin, Gene Colan, Neil Adams, Steve Ditko, Frank Frazetta. They got a Frazetta cover right there. I am so glad that they're doing these affordable paperback editions of the creepy and eerie stuff from Warren. So I had to point out that that was out. Also, y'all, Wasted Space, the Cosmic Collection. This is every issue of Wasted Space in a hardcover omnibus form. It is $80 and it is worth it. This has been one of my favorite comic books of the last 10 years, all put together. This is the most beautiful collection I have ever seen from Vault Comics. This is absolutely amazing. The reproduction is amazing. The artwork looks amazing. Like, everything is a freaking spot on. And it smells so good. It's the smell of the week. Is a graphic novel. And this came out a few weeks ago. Diamond had a kerfluffle. Diamond Shops will be getting it next week, but I finally got my copy of Monica, the new Daniel Clowes book. I have not read it yet. I'm so freaking excited, y'all. But now you cannot worry anymore. I got my copy of Monica, so there you go. To recap, Pink Elephant, it's been a fun, trippy, psychedelic murder series, though I was a little bit underwhelmed by that ending. Rumpus Room, issue number 2, improves on the concept by issue number 1 by giving us some delicate work on the characters. Gargoyles Halloween Special, if you like gargoyles and you like Halloween, that's a no-brainer right there. The Man from Maybe, if you like your comic books weird and absurd and a little bit out there, definitely check that one out. Al Capone Vampire, just skip it. It's a continuation of something you didn't read and you're probably not going to like it anyway. Hatchet, Halloween Tales Volume 5, only for the most hardcore of Hatchet fans, otherwise avoid it. Crusader issue number 2, great textured artwork with impeccable storytelling right there. I love that. Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, slasher, cutesy, animals, sleeper hit of the week. There you go. Headless Horseman, cover of the week by Mike Mignola. Mark Spears, you get runner-up, man. I'm sorry, bro. I love you, man, but it's tough to go up against Mike Mignola. Subgenre, issue number 1, if you're a Matt Kent fan, you definitely want to check that out, especially if you like his more meta stuff. Batman White Knight, Generation Joker, issue number 6, a great conclusion to that series. Titans number 4, continuing to build momentum post-Night Terrors. Same thing with Nightwing, but I found that issue a little bit more charming. Catwoman 58, not as great as the rest of all the chapters of the Gotham War right now, but essential nonetheless. Green Lantern War Journal, loving the character work here and the dynamic superhero work being done there. Superman number 7, Josh Williamson knows what he's doing. He's writing a Superman book for me. I'll tell you that. Batman Superman World's Finest, issue number 20, best issue of this series yet. One of the best DC books this week, one of the best superhero comics, single issues I read all year. Maybe. Because that's the fanboy inside of me. Jay Garrick, The Flash, issue number 1, continuing the story of Boom in the past and in the present, but definitely worth it. Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong. Do not expect much out of this book, and it will deliver anything you want and more. Deadpool, Battered Blood, Rob Liefeld do what Rob Liefeld do. Children of the Vault, high concept, but still really cool vibing, feeling, buddy cop type thing with Cable and Bishop. Miles Morales, Spider-Man, a little bit of a step down. Same thing with Moonight. There was just a loss of the kinetic energy in the typical artists from those books. Incredible Hulk number 5, we keep switching artists in this. It's going to be losing momentum. Daredevil number 2, though, really liked that one. Crypt of Shadows, if you're a big Marvel head and you want something Halloween-y, definitely pick that one up. But over that, I would recommend Tingling Spider-Man, my favorite Spider-Man book in forever. Favorite Marvel book of the week. Sensational She-Hulk number 1, though, was a big surprise. I might want to get caught up on the Rainbow Rowell on Rainbow's run and see what I think. Big game, I'm loving it. It feels big, but it doesn't feel like a game. Hexagon Bridge, great artwork, a slightly confusing story. Click, click, boom, a violent and satisfying conclusion to Doug Wagner's latest crime drama epic. Kill Your Darlings, a little bit confused on that one, not really quite vibing with that. Local Man returns, and it's great. Swan songs, really interesting stuff from W. Maxwell Prince right there, as of course we know. Hack Slash Back to School, really liked this approach to Hack Slash by Zoe Thorogood. It felt in that world, but still very much hers. But Tenement, issue number 5, atmospheric, epic, revelatory, fan-frickin-tastic. It's the pick of the week. So that's what I read, that's what I thought, that's what I dug. What are you reading? What are you thinking? What are you digging? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And join us over at patreon.com/PCP if you want to help support the channel. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading. Station. Pop, pop. Boom.